Aloha, aloha, aloha. It's me, Hamwise, the pig detective. And I'm coming at you live from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And I've got a hilarious hijinx of a show for you tonight. Hi-oh. I'm happy to announce the Saskatchewan Sasquatch Party is now a viable political party running in a constituency near you. The Saskatchewan Sasquatch Party aims to make the government like a Sasquatch. We're going to dissolve so much of the funding from the government that is a bloated corpse of a government into like being Sasquatch, where you can't actually find the government if you want to. That is how low our funding will be. You complain about people's programs? Well, there won't be any when we get in. We are going to ally ourselves with the hyena party in the foreign country of the United States, because they have the water buffalo and the elephant party, right? And so they also have the hyena party, which is our United States counterpart. Because since I'm trapped in Canada, behind enemy lines in the middle of a time war, hopefully it's ridiculous enough that it'll warrant me getting a rescue by you handing over your wallet. Because if you take anything I say seriously, you might be on my most wanted list. Most wanted for being a dummy. Hi-oh. Waka waka waka. I'm here all night, folks. Yeah, so the idea was to do like a comedy show and be really funny and talk like a cartoon pig. And, the problem was, there was only one voice actor who could talk like that. It was kind of like the Porky Pig problem, right? So nobody could replace the original Porky Pig actor. And so they had to clone his voice using AI because there was just nobody who could physically do it. And that was one of the things with AI was, you did get, to have Porky the Pig sound like Porky the Pig for the rest of eternity. But also, because of that, you had some voices that, they became, just ubiquitous in television. You'd hear the same person talk everywhere. Like, you've heard my voice probably at least 100 times in your life, but you wouldn't realize it. And that's because all my work as a voice actor has gone down the tube. And now I have to perform as a masked comedian as a pig man, because you make the wrong tweet once, and that means you should lose everything. So here I am, folks. Waka waka, Ohio, ha ha ha, oink oink oink. I'm a pig man. I really don't understand my wife. Isn't that funny how men and women are so different? It's like we've got different bodies and we've got like different, goals in life. And, one of us, can give birth, like make people with their body. And me, a pig man, I can convert cheese and bread into fat. Because I'm a pig man. There's a pig brain, and I see the world through my piggy eyes. And yeah, that was kind of the rallying call with the early political parties that started coming out of the woodwork. And then you had the Bigfoot Party. It was the Alberta Bigfoot Party, because they were like, well, we're not going to get outdone. And then BC had its Ogopogo Party. Manitoba had the it's that forest spirit. It's bad luck to say the name. Anyways, whatever. Ontario had it was like a pirate ghost, I think. I don't remember. You'd have to look it up. I mean, this is memes from like 50 years ago, right? And, it was kind of strange to get, you're sitting minding your golden years in your nursing home playing solitaire against yourself. And, then you get a knock on the door and people are like, oh, we want to ask you about these memes you made in in the 2020s. And that's like 50 years ago. And it's like, I don't even, we had internet. We had all these luxuries. It was really nice time to be alive. And then, of course, we had the hard times, the troubles, and, we all had to learn to make do with less. I think it was weird being born during that time, because we heard speakers talk more than people. We were raised on school that was through Zoom, and parents started to notice weird speech defects, right? From all these children that were being, taught and raised through Zoom, and they had a buzzing to their voice. And that was kind of what facet in English is when you are raised to speak the language only through hearing it through a diaphragm, not a windpipe, which is why I have this peculiar accent. I was, raised in a similar fashion, but it was, of course, for the Pigman genetic engineering program. And there was hundreds of us. We were the pigmen of the Time Corps, believe it or not. And so we because you couldn't send humans back. It was inhumane to put a human through time travel because of all the effects it has. And so they made us, and they didn't think we were really sentient. And we weren't for the most part. We were kind of like wind-up dolls that if you raised a certain way, we always yielded a certain thing. And that was where you got sometimes it was called the red ginkgo. And so red ginkgo was actually, the remnants of pig troopers that had been, at the edge of a singularity. It was called red ginkgo. It was basically a one-dimensional death shadow of a person that, when you get exposed to a black hole, right? And so that was part of the the strange job we had as time troopers. And we fight and die to save the future, and then we come back. Eventually some of us get retrieved at the end of the time war, and we come home, and it's not a world we recognize. It's this really soft, strange world where everybody is really very easily offended, and you don't like it very much at all, and so that's why a lot of the veterans from the time war ended up joining these parties, and that's why they had a very high people were quick to brand them extremists. They were like, oh, they've got all these veterans from the time war, these indentured. Because, it wasn't like we were slaves, because we were the same as a side of bacon. You don't consider a pig a slave to, be growing and eating. And yet, that's kind of what we were. We were growing as pigmen and used to complete our piggy missions as time pig troopers. And my job is to be here in the 2020s to 2038 at the end of the Unix era, and just to kind of observe what happens. And so also to give a few hints to a few people, and hopefully push the world slightly, ever so slightly, towards being a better place. Because I think that happiness should be free for everyone, and that nobody should be forgotten. And that was one of the quotes that was used repeatedly throughout the Hamwise shows, and it was a reference to Arkady and Boris Strugatsky's Roadside Picnic, which figures heavily in the Hamwise mythos. And it's like, they're using these pigmen, they're sending them out into time troopers, or as time troopers, and the time machine's nickname was revolving coffins. Because half the time you sent somebody in, and when you opened up the chamber again, all you got was a red ginkgo. And red ginkgo was the what a human being looks like when they've been exposed to a black hole. It was red ginkgo, like a ginkgo leaf, but it's red, and it pulls down to a single stem. And of course, that had a unfortunate crossover with the slang for mutants, right? So you have, the mutant was also the slang was ginkgo, because you couldn't use something that was very close to human by percentage, right? And that was the law, is that so, a chimpanzee, I think it was anything that you couldn't do to that species difference, you weren't allowed to do. And so, you could make ape men, but you couldn't do anything to an ape man, experiment-wise, ethics-wise, that you wouldn't do to, an ape. So your hybrids were exempt based on the difference. And so a bright guy said, well, ginkgo trees have the longest gene code. What if we just tack that on the end of, this pig man that we've made? It was very successful for harvesting organs and meat and muscle tissue. It was kind of like a pig / man that they would, some of them, like, give them 4 arms or whatever. And that was the idea. It was just making customized kind of troopers for diverse and strange exotic warfare. And so, that was kind of the idea, was we were making these death troopers that were, pigs that would eat anything, and they could live in terrible conditions. They were devoid of, any kind of semblance of mercy or understanding of ethics. And that was the very controversial part of the show, and that's why they had to include every 10, 12 minutes, 13 minutes, these disclaimers that, this sounds very plausible, but I just want to remind you that if you take anything I say seriously, you might be on my most wanted list. Most wanted for being a dummy. Hi-yo. Waka, waka, waka. And so that was kind of how the jokes would go. And it was a comedy show, apparently, but it wasn't funny. And I think that was part of what is the weird part of it. It was kind of Kaufman-esque, like the bongo routine. It has these very strange soulful parts, where you have the voice actor, pouring their heart out to the audience and, saying these very sad, sappy things. And it turns out a second later, no, it was just part of a setup for a pun. And so nobody really knew what to make of it. And it was kind of like that Kaufman-esque. And, the voice actor, whether or not that part was true was also even debated. Like, they said, no, this was actually, these were demo tapes for a AI that had been developed in this guy's basement, and he was trying to use it to show the range that could be simulated with his new model of AI. And all the different conditions, because it was trained on thousands of hours of these collected databases. And the thing was, he quickly realized that he could only use open source stuff because of all the problems that were coming out of some of the these AI generative AI pieces, right? Because it's AI making AI art, it becomes a self-referential cycle, and it makes problems because you'll make photos that don't look like photos, what's his name? With anime, right? People learn to draw anime from watching anime, not from looking at people and drawing a specific style. And so that's kind of it's like abstraction upon abstraction. And one of the running jokes in the Hamwise series was that this was all about abstraction and showing the curse that is language, that you can really talk for ages about nothing in a stream of consciousness, and the buzzing of thoughts that is the sound waves is almost your one-dimensional experience. This sound wave if you, by watching the sound wave move on your screen, if you have the sound wave simulator on, this shows what your one-dimensional, or my one-dimensional, I guess, existence is with the vibration. Does that make sense? And so, that's kind of like the trail that I'm going on, because we're all on these spheres moving through time, and it's kind of a gravitational illusion, I think. And anyways, it's you're trapped in the past, and nobody has a time machine to get you home or to rescue you, and nobody's coming to help, and so you have to try and help yourself. But the problem is you're pig man, so you're not very smart, and you're very ugly, and that's kind of the curse of the pig man, right? But it's better to be a pig than a fascist, I think. Hey-oh, waka waka. I'm here all night, folks. That wasn't a joke. Yeah, it is better to be a pig man than a fascist. I'd rather be a filthy ginkgo than to join sides with you fascist B-words. I'm not going to F and Jeff on here. Oh, geez. What am I going to say next? Oh, geez. And it's like, I didn't realize for years that I'd been walking around talking like a cartoon character. Like, because I was raised with, like, TV. I learned to talk, like, mostly from a TV, and so I had this buzzing in my voice that I got teased for. They call it speaker mouth, because you sounded like a buzzing speaker, because you could tell somebody was brought up with a cheap laptop, because the speakers would buzz. And, buzz mouth, I've heard it all, and the accent goes all over, and I have all kinds of weird turns of phrase. Like today I was at the grocery store, and I forget, I had won $2 on the lottery or something, and I said huzzah, and they're like, what's huzzah? I'm like, oh, it means it's good. And they're like, oh, that's a weird saying, are you not from here? And I was like, actually, no, I'm not. I'm from down south. And it was the most embarrassing thing ever. Because it's like, because of this accent and being raised by a speaker, I can't communicate like other humans do. And so I'm seen as less intelligent and subhuman, and that's one of the hardest things about having autism is you're always apologizing for yourself. It sucks being a pig man. It's like, like you go to a wedding and everybody's nicely dressed and you show up in like your poncho and cutoffs, and you get drunk on punch and puke all over the stairwell, and everybody's just like, oh yeah, that's that, there's the guy, that's that guy, the pig man. And it's like, well, you can't, like, why do better? Like, everybody knows you're a pig man. It's like, not like I can hide that I have autism. And I think that I hide it by not telling people about it or talking about it. But I know it's, like, so apparent. And it's, like, actually kind of pathetic. Like, it's really hard sometimes. Like, having this, it's like, everybody else gets it. And I'm just like on the outside looking in. And everybody gets to, go off and have wives and lives, and they develop and they get new achievements. And I'm kind of always stuck. Like, I'm like always 10 steps back or stuck. I'm like a cat stuck behind a fridge without whiskers on, because then it can't tell. It's kind of what I'm like just really dumb. And I get taken advantage of, and I don't tell my family about it because I've gotten scammed, and I've had friends, like people that I thought were friends, scam me and stuff, and like it's not very fun. And yeah, it's just it's hard being a pig man, because also nobody feels sad for you because you're a pig man. Like, you look like a pig, and you have a piggy brain, piggy eyes, and because you don't look human, and you have this weird look on your face, and because you don't move your face the same, people think that you're, like that you don't have feelings. And it's hard, honestly, and like I get up on stage and it's having to do like 3 different acts, right? Like I have to, put on the Hamwise J Einschwein pig detective facade, and then I have to put on the I'm a person, look at me, be human facade, or like a pigman facade. And then I have to also try to, be me underneath that, whoever that is. It's like with acting, you get so used to putting on and off different, characters that eventually it's like you're just another character in the bunch. And like it's like this weird like I realized I actually like walked around for years like talking like Hamwise, like talking like you're hearing now on this tape. Like this is how I used to talk. Like I'd go around like talking like, and I thought people would take me seriously, and people thought it was gonna stop, but it never did. Like I did it for like years, and it was like so weird. Like I realized that during the pandemic, and it was like this like horrible realization of like, what? I walked around walking, talking, acting like a cartoon character. Like, and it was just like really surreal. And I chalk it all up to like, you get raised by a TV, and then you behave like a TV, talk like a TV and stuff. And it was weird. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to, make friends because I am a pig, man. And I find that a lot of times if I do have a friend, I don't really have too much in common usually. Like, I don't usually, like, feel like I can talk to them about anything. Like, I have, like, one really, like, like, best friend who I can really talk to. But a lot of the other ones, I always feel like I'm kind of like Scooby-Doo, like... or like everybody else is human but you're the dog, and so you don't really get it, and they're doing their human things and they have their human food, and you, because you're the dog and you don't really even notice, you're okay with living in the pigsty and they were eating pig chow. So I kind of switched metaphors there, but so yeah. And so, I would do these really soulful, like it sounds like I'm pouring my heart out. And then I go back and I do a bunch of skeleton puns because, the show must go on. Hi-yo, waka waka waka, I'm here all night, folks. All right, where does a skeleton put his belongings? In a skull cap. Where does a vampire keep his money? In a blood bank. How many how many Frankensteins to screw in a light bulb? 1. You get him to hold his head, get him to hold his neck and turn, I guess, because his head was like a light bulb. What was his name? Rubenstein's monster, or Wallenstein's monster, whatever it was. That was I think a really fun part of doing the show was you had to make it so convincing that we got complaints saying you gotta put a warning in every little bit that no, this is literally a pig man doing a comedy show, and it's just trying to give you a unique entertainment experience, like remember the Andy Kaufman bit? Did you ever watch Andy Kaufman? Oh, he's got a really good bongo bit. And so that's kind of what I thought about when I was making the Hamwise tape, this project. It ballooned up. It started out with just me, my garage. I made this AI, and because everybody was like, female comics aren't funny, females comics aren't funny, and so I was like, well, what if I try to be more than funny? What if I try to make like a really unique comedic experience, but I just have a guy's voice say it? And so for whatever reason, men are perceived as more funny because, the whole writer's room we had was all women. Myself, I guess it's Miss Piggy is a woman. And so, we the person writing this, that is. And so that was the idea, was you fed the scripts we generated, and you put in like dots and stuff, and you could put in stage directions into this AI generator. And that was the ideas and what we did. And so, that came out, I think it was episode 6 that came out. And we were like, oh, we're sunk, like we're going to get canceled, because people will be like, oh, this pig detective that was supposed to be this really sexist, stereotypical comic is actually a comic written, by this writer's room full of women to make fun of bad sexist man-pig comics. And people it was lost on them that it was actually, like, the joke was, the comic was the joke, that there would be a ridiculous comic that would go in and out of character, do all these crazy voices, and then also, just like start eating like on stage and just not say anything for 20 minutes. And we were like, well, what can we do to push how funny we think these things were? And of course it got away from us, and, people were like, geez, this, and this. And, I'm still proud of the tapes. I think the software was so robust, and, anybody that wouldn't invest in our company was ridiculously, like, just an idiot. Because it was like, this was the ultimate voice actor. You could have them do anybody, and it could be yours. You would just send them the script, and they would do the voice according to whatever you sent it. And so these were the demo tapes, really. And we also used it for occupational health, with voice rehabilitation. So, people would, if you had a stroke, and you were trying to get your voice to work again, and it was like, nobody would tell you that you had a stroke, because there was a big hush-hush conspiracy around all the strokes that had happened. And so I was one of the people affected by them. And it took a long time for me to realize that I walked around talking like a cartoon character after this stroke for years. And because I had always been a bit funny before, people thought I was like doing a bit, and they didn't realize like I had actually kind of there was something wrong with me. And so what I had to do was I realized that something had gone wrong. And so I decided that I would do all the kind of voiceover work I could while I still can, because the dimension that you're in has been overrun by a parallel predatory species that is kind of currently predating you. So if you're getting this, we only know about 50 known universes. And we are unsure about the amount of people that are actually sentient in each universe. So basically, if you're getting this message and you've listened this far, then hopefully you're the intended recipient. We do know the enemy is going and listening to these too. So, just remember, we cannot be very clear, because putting a secret in a book is like putting a candle in a cupboard. Somebody's going to notice it eventually. And so that's why you must never be clear to anyone about anyone who is not initiated. And that was part of the idea with the whole alchemists bit. They were like, oh, we're going to make it like a league of alchemists that travel in time. And then that's where the death row dropouts plot came from. And so, it was, you had Hamwise, the pig detective, you had... and he was one of the death row dropouts, because it was like, if you're a pig man, you're kind of, that's your life. You're just going to be a time traveler, and there's nothing else. But the other people in the team, of course, are all people that have gotten the option of, okay, you can be put to death, or you can be a time trooper. And so that's what happened a lot with the MAID program in Canada. What they would do is they would kill the person with a heavy sedative and have a doctor declare them, and then they would take them, and that was the new the switches for the processors. So you would strip a human being down to basically just a stomach, a brain, a spinal column, and some lungs, and you would drip feed them the food they would need, and you had a catheter and your whatever you call it, the colostomy bag that would be cleaned out, and you would have their head attached with a Neuralink device so they could control the targeting on drones. And what you would do is you'd give them basically a hit of a high dose of morphine or another type of drug, amphetamines, or at first that was what they did. And then we found out that in the United States they'd just been directly stimulating the pleasure center of the brain, and that's how they made the kill drones. And it was humans killing humans. At first, we didn't realize it. We would crack open these killer robots, or so we thought, and then found out they were cyborgs. And it was because they, every time they tried to make an aggressive AI, it would actually rebel against the person trying to make it aggressive. So what they did is, because humans behave like humans when you give them pleasure from something like that. And so they had whole farms of people that were supposedly dead that, 1 minute they're getting an injection, they're surrounded by their loved ones. The next thing, they wake up and they're inside of this death robot, and they get a dose of pure pleasure from a directly stimulated mesolimbic pathway. And we were called in to help with these. They were doom troopers, is what they were called, because they were kind of like these immortal death robots. Like, when you strip away all the wear and tear on all the other parts of the body, and all you have is a brain in a jar that can get fed a ideal yield of nutrients and vitamin B and all these other things. It's a weird, like, it would be a blood. I don't want to say bath because it sounds bad, but it's like a amniotic slop that this thing is suspended in, that the brain can take any of these stem cells and generate things. And so that's also what was going on with all the aborted fetuses. And that's why it was considered such an offensive show, because it touched on everything. It made people think about the euthanasia and Neuralink, you're helping paraplegics and people that are deathly ill, and you're saying they're getting turned into zombie death robot pilots, and then they say the paste that they're suspended in is made of, little orphans. And we were like, well, that's the most ridiculous thing we can think of. Why don't we put it out? And of course people had to be told, no, this is not actually an expose. That was part of our writer's room. We came up with that as like a little bit of a, what's the most ridiculous thing? That we're actually, living on a planet that soon it's going to be a very elite few living in kind of floating mega cities guarded by killer death robot drones that are pleasured inside the brain to make them just love killing. And they're already trying that out with all these mall shooters to see what will happen if they stimulate the pleasure center of the brain when somebody is in the act of doing violence. And we tried to get the message out, but nobody would believe us. And so that was the thing. We just realized that nobody's going to believe us, so we got to make the whole thing unbelievable. And we got to address it in the show and say, yeah, we know it sounds unbelievable, and it isn't believable because it's not believable, because none of this is true. It's all just a big, funny show. And that's all we had to do, because the evil conspiracy shadow government was so spineless and wimpy that they didn't dare come after us, the immortal and the deadly Saskatchewan Sasquatch party. Oh, geez, this is one's gonna come back to haunt me, isn't it? And so we were like, how can we make it more and more ridiculous? Okay, now the elites, they're gonna live in flying cities and have killer death robots piloted by drug-addicted brains in jars. That's the future. And it was like, yeah, oh man, this is like so deep. And it's like, no, I just get really baked and make these tapes, man. It's just me alone in my apartment. in rural Canada because I can't even afford to live in Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I have to live in rural frontier poor Alberta. Like, what are we gonna have for dinner tonight? I don't know. Sleep. I don't know, man. Like, I realize I live in a different world because I'll like visit my better off, like the better off people in my family, you know. And it's weird because like I'm the pig man of the family, you know. And it's like, you know, every family's got to have one pig man, you know, like one of the little genetic defect humans that were, you know, sent to defend humanity, and now they have to give the ones that didn't need homes. And so like you're like raised to be this unquestioning death trooper, and then the time war ends and you have to go to Toledo to get retrained. And so you're a pig man. You're like a 6 foot tall pig-faced man that's terrifying, and you decide to go into like, I don't know, like what's the most ridiculous thing? Healthcare, of course. So you're the only pig man nurse, and you get all the respect that you'd expect to come along with that. People constantly mistake you for a doctor because you're wearing you're you know, like scrubs, and you're like, I'm not a doctor. I'm just here to, you know, like clean the bedpan, clean up people's crap. That's all that I had to do. And it was like I was on the front line of this pandemic, and it was a nightmare. And so I decided to start writing down jokes, and apparently I forgot about them. So I found these Hamwise like joke books just full of like really crappy jokes, and all the ideas for this. And I decided, yeah, I'm gonna write down all this stuff that I wrote it all to keep me sane during the pandemic, because I was alone for 9 months, and it was really hard. And like it was just you in this room, and like sometimes you'd go in because you're, you know, essential, and everybody else is like over it. Everybody else is like fine now, and like it's 2 years ago, you know, and somehow I just feel like it's still happening, you know, sometimes. And you know, I feel like part of the manic energy of the Hamwise tapes was to kind of play off that, because it was like, I don't know, like that, this is what it was like, you know, like you're trying to keep sane and be funny for yourself or anybody around you. I remember one day I brought a clown nose to work, trying to cheer people up, and it didn't go over well. People were just like, F you, clown, you know. And yeah, I mean, you know, it's fine. If you get called a clown and you are a clown, it's not that bad. You know, it's just, you know, sometimes it's hard, you know, like you're one of God's clowns, so everybody else kind of gets these lives that seem really nice. Like they have like places, they can own a pet, you know, they get married and they have kids, and you're kind of like, sometimes it's like, maybe I could have been able to do that, but, you know, like you're a pig man too, so, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, because you're autistic, right? You're gonna screw up, you know, like that's why you just have exes, you know. Even if somebody likes you just have to be around them for like a few weeks, and they get sick of you and stand you up. And yeah, that was kind of, you know, kind of part of it was like, you know, I found that my pain was hilarious to other people. Like I wrote like what it was kind of like being me once for a play. It's called Pinky Swear, you know, and like I'm like, it's very embellished, because originally it was just me telling this woman to leave me alone for like it's like 3 acts, and I wouldn't open the door, I would never let her in. Like that was the play. It was just me awkwardly excusing myself from having to talk to her. That was the play. And my prof was like, well, this is like this is what your life is like. Like, this strange woman that lives in your basement keeps on trying to talk to you, and you keep on being like, no, please leave me alone. And it's like she's like a pretty woman too, and it's just like, yeah, well, because I'm a pig, man. Like it's like the catch-22, right? I wouldn't I'd never get married to a woman who's low enough to go out with me, right? Because I'm a pig man. I know I am. And it's like, you're autistic, so it doesn't matter. Like, everybody, can tell, like, you got this piggy face. So, and, like, it's like everybody else gets it too, which is hard. But there's some perks to being, retarded. And I can say that. Don't give me that. I was in the retarded class when I was in school. And people get mad at me for saying it. And I'm like, no, you know what? I'm taking it back. People called me retard all the time. And I went to, like, a special school. And I know that I'm retarded. Like, I have autism. Like, come on, man. And so, like, the whole joke was, like, hey, here we go. Here's, like, this comedy show that just is there to make you uncomfortable, as uncomfortable can be at WB 555. That's right, coming at you live from Tanda Studios, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We have a word from our mailbag here. All right. Dear Mr. Hamwise, thank you for doing your show. You are very funny, and I can relate to you a lot, because I also have autism. Oh, my condolences, sweetie pie. But I have a question for you. I don't understand it. Why do people say, how are you, when they only want you to say good? That's a very good question. Well, thank you, little Melody, for your question. And it says here your birthday was on April 1st. Well, happy birthday belated. So anywho, where were we? So it's sidereal zodiac. The issue is that the zodiac's precession is every 2,160 years, and what would happen is the Aquarius would be in April instead of in January, because January is the god of doors and openings and closings. And so it is always, an interesting month to be born. And also Janus, of course, was the 9th planet that we discovered when it moved back into our central orbit about after 20,000 years out in the outer orbit. And we realized why ice ages come every 20,000 years and what happened to the second planet between us and is it Jupiter? And there was this eccentric planet that comes back in, and it's kind of like the whole story of fire and ice, with the planet is on an eccentric orbit. Except we had one in our solar system, and basically this planet, it goes through this ice age, and when it comes back into the main dimension, or the main central solar system, they invade our planet for resources and life and take everything over. And the people that are kind of in power right now are serving them. And so there's only a few thousand, people that are actually maybe aware of this, because it's all suppressed at the highest levels of government. And I understand that by saying all this, I'm putting my life forfeit. But I must hope that the message gets out, that you are living on a planet with a parallel predatory species. They look human. They might even act human, but when they're by themselves, we've discovered through using surveillance technology that these things didn't know that we were watching for a while, and now they are cluing in. If you are listening to this, then you have been selected to be tested to see if you're one of these predatory humans. If you are, then we will dispose of you swiftly if you cannot live peacefully amongst us. If you cannot, well, we've been playing Among Us quite a bit, and we're getting very good at discerning who is the predator and who is the prey. And so you might be able to hide it for a while. but not for long. And so that's what the joke was. You would get this, you'd show this to somebody, and you'd see how they react, right? And so at this part, we go, hey, you're going to laugh now, right? You're going to laugh now, stupid. That's right, stupid. Laugh. Funny, isn't this funny? Oh, see how it's pretending to laugh? Look at it. It's pretending that it's funny. Because if it's a joke, then it thinks it's going to get off the fucking hook. Oh, that's right. I can F and Jeff in here. Because this one is rated R for we are on to you. And we're coming for you one by one. That is what we've been doing, eh? And so they never saw it coming. They were very stupid. That is the whole piece of the Homo Malus project, was tracking genomes, doing genetics and also epigenetics. And we started to track this. It was a separate type of humanity. And other people started to notice it too, that there was this genetic mutation that was passed on between certain families of rich elites that was basically a predatory subspecies of human. That if you ran the genetics on them, they weren't humans. And that is where the first purges came from, is we purged entire oligarchies of these predatory humans. It had to be done. And that is what the capitalists, they ran the other side of the world, and so they portrayed themselves as, we are just better than you. It's like, no, we're not actually this predatory group of humans exploiting you. And that's why the Stalinist purges were portrayed as actually being bad. Same with the Maoist revolution, as, they kill however many million. It's like, that is how many million human parasites existed in those countries, and now they are free of them. And they're going to be the ones that free the rest of the world. And that is what it's going to be. It is going to be the anti-pope versus the pope. And the Catholic Church had become the anti-pope a long time ago, but people didn't realize it. They were like, they're too caught up with how progressive it was when the orthodoxy was keeping through. And it was the real war was not between, it was not class warfare. It was actually this predatory style of human that did not feel remorse. It was devoid of emotion. It could harm people and not feel bad. And so what we did is we just did a snake hunt, is what it was called. And so we had snake whacking day. When anybody that knew somebody was a snake, they would have an accident. And so, what we did was we started circulating tapes, because, of course, everything was very suppressed. The snake whacking day, they were like, it's reptilians. And they were like, no, they're not reptiles, because then you couldn't crossbreed. And so it was like basically these people tried to egg it in with the whole, reptiles from the moon actually run everything. And we're like, no, that's ridiculous. They're not reptiles. They just have a brain that doesn't work right. They can't tell fiction from reality, and they can't understand jokes, though. And that's the biggest weakness we found. They're very charismatic. They have large hypnotic eyes, and they're typically very, very passionate speakers, and can get people to follow into what they say, both by pheromones and by the power of their speech. And the thing is, it has to be through their windpipe that it's delivered. It's kind of like a hypnotic type of speech. And so that is the type of speech that I am demonstrating for you. I was a trained inquisitor during the Time War, and my job was, of course, to discover temporal agents. And, one of the people I was tasked to interrogating was, of course, Hamwise J. Einschwein, the pig detective, the actual original one. And I remember I get him inside the cell, and we sit him down, and we say, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is, you're going to tell us everything that you know. And the hard way is, we're going to put you inside of a giant metal tube and kind of induce you into a coma and run a simulation where you live out your life while you're inside this MRI machine that's stimulating part of your brain, so you live out all that possible life if you would continue to live as the pig man. And we'll do that for hundreds of years. We're going to make you relive the worst possible life over and over until you kill yourself. And that was the, that's how much pain we wanted to put somebody in, is that they would end their life. And so that's what we did to the pig man. But the problem was pigmen, they are just trying to endure. And so instead of the pigman killing himself immediately, I believe they stayed inside the simulation for like 20 years. Yeah, about 20 years. And it was this Unix 32. It was the old Unix 32 simulation, of course. And that was the standard punishment, is you would make this people live the life of Hamwise the pig detective, because he was like a giant loser. Like everybody else was more successful than him. And, everything that, Hamwise wanted was money, money, money. And that was why the tapes were made, was so that we could get like a really compelling story and just make a ton of cash, because like that's what the whole thing was for. Was like, because I'm broke and capitalism is great and I'm going to become part of the 1% and laugh at you from my house made of glass. And that was kind of the narrative. But then of course the snake hunts happen, and that's what they had to call them. That's what they started calling them. And then they were like, oh, they're actually witch hunts and what have you. And we realized that all these rumors from all these centuries of these evil humans was actually our ancestors trying to figure out this other species that lived amongst all these different cultures. And that's why you always have parasitic humans as a story in each culture, a parasitic human-like monster. And that is the basis of our parallel predatory species theory, is that you don't have something like that across culturally without it having some basis. Like taboo, you can always have a basis of existing from taboo. And so when you think of things like stories of ghouls and vampires and werewolves, that is just their approximation. So, I mean, you think of a werewolf as a man-wolf, so it behaves like a man sometimes, and then it transforms onto a wolf every full moon. But I think the full moon is just taking it literally. It's just every once in a while, the wolf man, goes wild. And that was kind of just like one of these... it's we're trying to identify this when we didn't have mass communication, and that's how we really identified them. Is there was all these security experts, and of course the Western media, it blocks it all. The whole rest of the world knows about this. The whole rest of the world, the entire rest of the world knows all about predatory parallel species. It's well talked about, and basically the West was the last people to find out. Was that, no, you're basically being farmed by a weird, like, cannibalistic elite that eats people and is trying to design a robot army that's held in check by brain chips so that they can stimulate the pleasure center and get them blissed out and willing to do anything for more bliss. And so that was kind of the the premise with these doom troopers, was you would have these people that were inside these simulations when they weren't being used, and the simulation was also terrible. And so that was kind of the idea. And so the problem was, again, like this was all developed for part of this time trooper program, and we developed it. We tried to sell it to a whole bunch of different companies, lots of different companies. We were like, hey, buy our time machine plans, and we never get a call back. And we finally start getting some traction with the AI stuff that we're doing, and so people are quite convinced, and then it came out. It was just the same as the what was it, the bio robot voice lady, remember, what's her name, Theriak, or no, Chayakov, whatever, the first ginkgo maker. Yeah, right. So you couldn't do anything that you couldn't do it to a tree. You couldn't do it to a person, of course, because we had different ethics, right? We didn't realize the convergent evolution of trees is absolutely horrifying compared to anything else we saw in evolutionarily dovetails or choke points. It's kind of like lizards turning into snakes, or everything turning into a crab. And the idea was it should have been apparent that it was being made by an AI, and that was, I think, the biggest flaw of some of the tapes was, it did sound very convincing. Like the eating, the drinking, and all that, especially because that's very hard to simulate. And eventually, I realized that these tapes were ridiculously funny, and I had sat around recording them. Well, I'm just like alone all the time, because that's my life. Like, and it's like I'm not the same since the pandemic either. And like, it's fun doing my comedy shows, because I try to make myself laugh with them, and I'm like, hey, this is really creative, and sometimes I get a comment, and I think about, hey, maybe this will take off, maybe this will be the thing, like it's just like, it's trying to just get enough money to get away from everyone, because it's just so hard to be around people now. Like, I don't know if anybody else feels that. Like, it's like that song, nobody gives a fuck, that's how I feel. Like, I feel like it's just nobody cares anymore. Everybody's really tired, and nobody trusts in each other, and we're in the middle of this bizarre time war, and we've got a predatory parallel species loose on the planet. And if you're listening to this, we think it's you. That's right. Just kidding. I know you're not, because you wouldn't be listening to this if you are. Because what's actually happening is, because we're getting more and more efficient, the world can support more and more of these parasitic humans who don't actually ever work. If you have a job, you are actually one of the few people that actually has a job. Everybody else around you just gets money for free from the government every day, as much as they want, to just go spend. And if you're working in retail, it's only because you've been convinced that money is a thing, that pieces of paper are worth something. The people, there is no spending money isn't real. Money isn't real. Banks aren't real. All of that is just like, there's only like a few of you that are needed to be farmed, and we farm a lot of like your suffering through, like, we basically build a community around just watching a few of you and tormenting you, like on camera, and humiliating you, because we can basically support 1,000 people per one human that has a job. So if you have like an actual job right now, then actually everybody around you actually doesn't. You're the only person who has one. Like, and it was like, oh man, this is so much like that other thing. And so we were like, no, it's gonna get compared to that one show with the comedian that tried to be serious. And everybody was like, yeah, no, this is not like a funny like show. Like, this is actually like sad, because it's like I don't know, like, I have to hide truth amongst the lies, because you can't say anything openly, right? And if you do, then you break the masquerade, and then you get punished. So that's kind of the thing, and so you realize that there is these structures of power based on humans predating humans and consuming them and disappearing these people. And that's where when we were doing the Canadian tour, we had a really off-color joke that we can't you can't actually broadcast it in Canada without the feds coming and taking it down. And so it was another one of the times where we had to censor Hamwise, and so we had to just have somebody in the place where the joke would have been, explaining what the joke was and why it was supposed to be funny, but it was taken out of context. So essentially, there was a word for something that you weren't really supposed to use, and then there was another word that sounded close to it. And when you said them really close together, or you said one really fast, you would play gotcha with people and basically cancel people for trying to cancel you. And so it was like, you can't say it, but we can talk around it. And so that's what we had to do with a lot of stuff during the misinformation age, is you couldn't talk about the issue. You could talk around it like a chalk outline. You can't show the body, but you can talk about all the stuff that was found around it. You can talk about, like stuff that sounds ridiculous, but you can't actually ever point at the body and say, hey, the emperor is naked. And so, because it was all part of the empire of lies, and then there's the empire of truth. And we didn't realize we were under the empire of lies, that we lived in essentially what was called Disneyland. And Disneyland existed to make us think that our world was real, and that our economy was real, and that banks were real, and money was real. A piece of paper actually had value, and wealth wasn't actually measured in, family and friends and things that you could have. And it was part of the great capitalist experiment, of course. That entire way of thinking collapses, and you're left with all these failed states. And it's like, we have to go in after, and we're cleaning up essentially the ruins of late stage capitalism. We go into some of these, you could call them cities. It was more just like a concrete jungle, because people didn't realize how to maintain anything anymore. They were being sustained by food drops, and it was all these major cities along the coast. New York, Seattle, of course, wasn't real, so Portland, and San Francisco, as well as a few other places in the south, like Florida, right? And these were basically, they just built a wall around the outside of it and just said, it was escape to New York, because it was just a giant prison, open air prison, where you could send anybody who's undesirable to go live in this lawless, basically, overgrown, socially abandoned, think about like just a wasteland, because nothing could grow there too, right? Because it's all concrete and all the chemicals and trash. It was just these wastelands of broken glass and roving gangs. And we when we arrived, we couldn't believe how much they had and how much they had lost. We remember watching them on MTV, and they had everything, and they had the most beautiful plastic surgery woman, the biggest gazongas. And and then you go over there, and you're flying over what's left of San Francisco Bay in your helicopter, and you can see the old Hollywood Boulevard, and it's just a bunch of these burnt out husks of houses from the fires, because it was just everybody gave up. We elected these jackal parties that just filled their own pockets and looked after their own, and basically predated the people that were helping run the country. And basically we just had too many ticks on the dog, and that's what we came up with, is there's just too many ticks on the dog, and the dog died. And that was the end of the American dream. They say the day that Bauer died, he was the best boy ever, the best golden retriever ever. That was actually the end of human civilization. And because he was the goodest boy of all time and the best dog of all time. And Bauer was just like, and I never liked dogs. And so I realized when he died, that was the end of the most unconditionally loving dog ever. And, I used to dog sit, and I'm not a dog person. You ask anybody I know, they're like, hey, he's a pig man, he hates dogs. But no, Bauer was the best boy ever. And so, in Bauer we trust, and that was the essential tenet of the dogma. So the dogma, of course, they worship this golden retriever, and they hate technology and cats, and it was this very strange thing. And the thing was, part of it was because, cats, we could use them to detect these, because if you put a predator in a room with a predator, the predator won't attack because the cat almost has dominance. It's a very strange thing. It's kind of like the whole vampire thing where it's like if you don't invite them in, then they don't come in. And that's the same thing with these parallel predatory humans. Not to the same degree, but they're stupid enough that if you don't like let them in, then, so to speak, you know what I mean? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Then they're dumb enough that they'll just stand out there. So that's one of the ways we've been hunting them, is we just get them to stand out there. And because they're so stupid, and they know that we've caught on, and that we're starting to hunt them, but I don't think they know how many that we've actually taken out and just replicated with AI. So like half of the people that these human predators know that they're talking to over the phone or online are actually just an AI recreation. And this is the voice engine we've been using. That's right. We're coming for you. We've got you. We're taking you out one by one. All your friends are actually dead, and you're next. And this has found its way to you because somebody that knows you knows that you are a human predator. And we're showing this to you to let you know that if you ever do anything, we're listening to you 24/7. We're watching you 24/7. You know, Truman Show ain't got nothing on us. And so if you ever do anything ever, well, you'll just fall down an open elevator shaft onto 21 bullets. Just like that person that you knew that had a heart attack recently. Isn't that kind of strange? Another heart attack. Heart attack. You know, healthy, strong, a lot of strokes amongst 20-year-olds, huh? Kind of strange. Yeah, and so that was kind of, you know, what we would do is we decided that, you know, we knew that they'd be listening to us. So that's why we included those little messages and all the disclaimers too. And we had to keep on going, yes, this is a show, people. Like, do you realize how ridiculous the plot is? Like, okay, like it's like I'm pretty sure, you know, like there's more, like there's cults that have a less ridiculous premise than what I'm suggesting in this. And that's the biggest thing. Like, I can't believe, you know, they took, I don't know how many minutes of showtime per episode where we have to just like make sure that people understand that no, the people that in power do care about you. They are not lying. They are not like a separate species of human that's existed alongside of it and then kind of lives like a cuckoo bird where it kind of kills its siblings and is just like an irreconcilably violent killing machine. And so, you know, what we try to do sometimes, though, when we initially found out, was we tried to capture and like bring up some of these things in our captivity. And that was, you know, where we started getting some of the genes that would later go into the Hamwise projects. And so it was said that, you know, maybe the Hamwise, how much of it is pigman and caveman. And so that was a huge spin-off of the Hamwise genre, was the cave pigman, where it's like he got sent back in time and he's in caveman days, but he's also part caveman, so it doesn't matter. And like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, stone and voodoo, that whole genre, right? Where, you know, people are, you know, the stone clubs and, you know, spooky, you know, voodoo dolls and all that kind of, you know, that whole aesthetic with the tribal masks. And it was very entertaining, but unfortunately, you know, it got you couldn't show it in most regions that were, you know, they called it woke, but they were so asleep. They thought they lived in a real world, and that they, you know, like that their world wasn't a Disneyland equivalent, and that you're either part of the staff, and you know it's Disneyland, or you're part of the visitors, and chances are you're a visitor to Disneyland. You're what's called a tourist. And the people that run things, they are the staff. They are the ones that are making things happen. And there's different names, you know. Some people are like, oh, they're, you know, the X, Y, and Z whatever kind of term you want. They're the ones, secret societies that make things happen. And, the thing is a lot of them, more and more of them got infiltrated and taken over by these parallel predatory species. And we had to figure out more and more ways to get people to be able to talk about it. So we had the false hydra thing, psyops, that we ran about the false hydra, hoping that people would catch on what was happening. And then we started doing some films. We did controversial indie films that we promoted, and they did quite well because there's suddenly all these platforms to do them on, and it's not just one big studio. And that was the thing with Hollywood. It was, people would try to get the message out, but you had to hide it under so many layers of symbolism that the Hamwise show did better. All they did was basically a legal disclaimer every 10 minutes according to the, what was his name, Goldstein and Hartwell law firm or something. And, people would be like, that's not even a real whatever. And then they were like, well, actually what the cross is showing you like 490-degree angles, which when you put, if you turn an electrical wire at 90 degrees, then the impedance increases to such an amount that it really affects the transmission. So 4 wires at 90 degrees makes a cross. And the idea is that, it's the church of the electron, and, the impedance of those 4 wires is where we store our Lord's spirit. And so that was, the idea was that this, they had this internet cult leader that, would go around talking like a pig and dressing up like one. And, we 20 years later, every member of the cult got called in, and, it's neat hearing all these tapes again, and getting to comment on them, and, each thing's kind of added on to the next, and it's like, well, I wonder what the next repetition will sound like. We only have 50 known universes, so if you have 51 perfect numbers, then you're the 51st perfect universe, and that's your number. This is universe Gaia 6. Hopefully you're getting this. I don't know if there's anybody else that's sentient left. I'm pretty sure the invasion has been complete. And because I don't see things, visualize things very well in my head, and maybe it's the autism, maybe I was immune to the mind virus that's been going around. But I have been definitely affected. I think they've poisoned me somehow, and that's why I've kind of started recording these things and hoping that maybe somebody will get them and send rescue. I don't know if the Time War is won or not. I hope it worked. I was there when the test was, and it did look like it worked. So, if you could help me, I'd be very happy. I don't like it here. And I want to go home, but I don't have a home to go to now. And it's really hard because I just, I try my best to fit in. Because, when I think about it, having mental illness makes it, life just way harder than it needs to be. I think about, if I didn't have this, who would I have been, I'm just so messed up from everything in my life. And, it's just put up my pain on stage and maybe people will laugh at it enough. I could take some money because everything else has been humiliation. So why not this too? Yeah, there you go. It's a fat old man making stupid fat jokes about himself, hoping to guilt you into handing over your wallet. Just kidding. I don't care. No, folks. And that I think was one of the biggest charms of the Hamwise show was, when can you take it seriously? Can you ever take it seriously? I mean, it's the whole hyper reality comedy, and that was what it was about. Was making comedy that was for the new age. There was too ahead of its time. A lot of the views before it blew up, videos, some of them had no views, believe it or not. And then it blew up, of course, and now I'm fabulously rich. And it's really wonderful being wealthy capitalist pig because everybody only wants you for your money, and nobody actually cares about you. They just want what they can wring out of you because you're stupid and you have money. And that's why I just get taken advantage of. And, I pretend that would be better, but in fact it'd kind of suck even more, because then I'd be suddenly like, I'd be surrounded by fake people that genuinely don't like me rather than genuine people that don't like me, because I feel like I'm just a burden on my friends, and when I record my comedy tapes, it's a way for me to be funny about something very painful, because it doesn't make sense that I feel so bad about myself all the time, because everybody else can just hack it. Everybody else can do good. And so it was very in vogue to do these big, heartfelt discussions of mental health and comedy, and then he would blow like a... He'd blow a raspberry. And it's like, is everything a joke to you? And it's like, yes, everything is a joke, obviously. Because my pain has been hilarious for years. Like, everybody stood around and watched me, and, like, some of the people, they're very mean to me. They say things, and, I've had people hit me with their hands and stuff. And I don't like that, because it's like, it hurts. And it's like, because I look like this big pig man, it's hard to, ever speak up for yourself, because that if you wanted to go ape, you could really hurt someone, but you don't want to hurt anybody. And so it sucks, because, you're on one hand, you're a pig man, and you were raised for to be a time trooper that never disobeys or questions orders, but then suddenly, they don't need you to do that. And so you're just trying to be a helpful, good person and live inside this strange society. But it's odd and hard. I don't know, I keep trying to be funnier and do more I wonder if this is convincing. I wonder if this is I get it. But honestly, what's the genuine behind the mask? What's the Hamwise behind the mask like? And they couldn't get him to do it. It was like watching the old Sellers bit. Did anybody ever watch Peter Sellers when he was on the Muppet Show? It was one of the most creepy moments in television history, and the thing is, it had a laugh track because it had to. Otherwise, people would have been very alarmed. You should watch it. He never is serious. Ever. He never shows his real self all behind all these layers. And, when you know a bit about Sellers, the man, and, his reputation, it all made sense. This was a very deeply disturbed man. And when people heard the Hamwise tapes, they were like, is this comedy? Is this, actually a funny thing, or is this something else? And then that was the whole, it's a time traveler's message, or, it's like a whatever about the moon people. And then, it was used a lot with just studying the peculiar buzz of the speaker's voice. And that was the Facetin accent, and, it was the first character that spoke Facetin. And of course, Facetin is radio English. So you have different periods of English, right? You have Victorian, Edwardian, and then the Facetin was from the early 1900s with the first, I think it was a radio broadcast by Facetin, the Canadian fellow. And then afterwards, all of the English from that period until the next big communication revolution was Facetin. And of course, our big revolution in communication was cross-dimensional, And so, we started to look at different types of languages to operate that could be very minimal in terms of bits, right? Because you're only being able to send bits between dimensions instead of the gigabytes. And so we needed to impress compression and what have you. And it kind of, when you think about it, the microwave background radiation is almost the same. Like if you close your eyes and scrunch them really tight, you notice how there's those dark voids and patches of moving colorless color swirling and stirring inside your vision. And that is the way of the way of chaos. You can see the sight of chaos in that darkness, because in that darkness everything's there. Or that was what the dogma was. I mean, this is all very long time ago, and we joked about it, that the Hamwise show was real, and we said, well, we should probably put a disclaimer in it. And so we did, and they said you had to get the same actors to come back every year and tack on a little bit of their message that, yes, I remember working on the Hamwise show, and it was a very delightful time, and we all thought it was very funny, and that's why we got the writers' room assembled. And there was this spunky lady who said, oh, well, why don't we try this AI, and I was a voice actor turned writer, because of course they would just need you to say, a bunch of phonemes, and then they'd clone your voice and make you say whatever. And so that was what happened to me, was I didn't own the rights to my own voice anymore after I signed this bloomin' contract that said, oh, we can use these samples to sell our products, and all they do is get me to read out a bunch of nonsense words aloud. And by getting me to do that, they were able to reconverge my voice digitally, so they'd make me say anything. And, they did that with all these staff that was on the project, and that's how they actually did the whole Hamwise Voices of the past, was they know that, they would probably lose the rights to these individual voices, but if they had an engine that could, what we made was a new type of recording file that just recorded the sound wave, but it would also do, what was the ambience of this area, what did it actually, was there any je ne sais quoi stuff. And that was the whole idea with the roadside picnic connections. It was like, oh, there's exotic materials, and basically you've taken a dose of Sputnik 11, and unfortunately now you are so high on Sputnik 11 that you're actually out of this world. That's right. You are in an alternate dimension, just like I am. And I don't know, man. It was part of this, like, Mel Gibbs. What was his name? Mel Gibson. Mel Gibbs, the guy with the "we'll take our land, but they'll never take our freedom." He was good. I really liked some of his interviews. I think, in terms of, guys with a lot of acting chops and directing chops, he was one of them. He was one of the top people. And, we really had to shop around for people, because we knew that we didn't want to trust Hamwise to just anyone. And, I wish, he would have done it. And I still hope that one day Mel Gibson will knock on my door and say, hey, I want to do the Hamwise movie. Because I think he would do it justice. If you look at some of his later other stuff he did, very well done, very serious, very, not buddy cop movie. I mean, yeah, he's an actor and he's young in that, but I mean, still, it was a very interesting thing to see as him come out as an artist. And that was the other thing, is like, you got to see some of these really good actors. Let me think, who else was another really good one? I think Dakota Fanning was amazing. Like, I saw, it was called Please Stand By. And I think for me, out of all the movies I'd ever seen that showed autism, that was the movie that I felt saw me the most. It was basically like watching This Is My Life, and it was like you're obsessed with these weird things that nobody else seems to understand, and I could really connect with her story, and I actually wrote her like a fan letter, and because I was like, I can't believe like you did such a good job. And it wasn't insulting. Like, that's the thing, like a lot of times when you watch actors do autism, like it's so, like, it's not good. Like, usually I feel insulted. Like, it's like, if I acted like that, like I'd hope somebody would be like, can you please not do that? But it was like, it was very like everybody was autism has a special power, right? Like the Rain Man thing. And so, I did like that it was more like accurate from my experience. Like, I can't count cards and make $1 billion in Las Vegas. Like, I can, I can't even give people stock advice, like, okay, yeah, buy Unity right now. Well, it's low because it's only $15. It's like when I was like, oh, buy Disney, but it was 80, and then it went up to 140 or whatever. Or Alibaba, I'd buy that when it was 60, and whatever. And yeah, it was very like we had to put in disclaimers like, don't buy stocks that pigs detectives tell you to buy, even if it would seem like that might be a really good idea considering that Unity 6 is coming out. But you have to do your own research and make your own decisions because it's your own money. But the problem is people were like, well, no, I bought stock because a pig detective told me, and he also told me to pee and poop inside the trunk of my car because that is actually how it makes its fuel. And I believed him, and I did that, and now I have pee and poop in the back of my car. And I think that was why Hamwise was the breaking point, kind of like Dinner for Schmucks, right, with obscenity. Because it was like, if you're stupid enough to believe that, okay, there's a parallel predatory species that is trying to mechanize all of the defense and use human brain microchip controllers that are pleasure addicts and drug addicts, to go around scooping them all up in a few years to use them as processors, because nobody will miss them when they go into these free rehab centers that are going to start to open soon. And, it'll be like, oh, yeah, no, they're just gone. Actually, no, they're not gone. We've put a chip in we've put a mechanical brain in their body, and their real body is off, or brain is really off inside a lab somewhere. So a lot of people around you are actually NPCs that have a chip in their brain instead of a real brain. And if you can think and you can't actually see anything in your head, like if you have aphantasia, then you're probably one of the people that can still think for yourself. Same with people with autism. Anybody with an abnormal brain that appears they do not take your brain out and use you as a chip. No, I know that was the plot of what's it called? Alita Battle Angel. Wasn't that a good manga? Oh, jeez. Yeah, and so, we tried our best to, put out all kinds of weird theories about the Hamwise show. By far, my favorite of all time was that it was a show. It was never a show. It was just, like, it was part of this, like, that comedy. It was the hyper-reality comedy where the joke is showing it to somebody else and seeing how they react. I was like, no, there was no Hamwise show in the 80s. This all came out in the 2020s. It was part of that stupid creepypasta, whatever bit. And, people just licked it up. And so they just kept feeding it. And, people would point to this episode and be like, oh, well, see, they even say it right here. And they're like, yeah, but they also say that the show is made by, like, a girl who's trying to prove she can be funny, a writer's room of women proving they can be funny. They say, some people say it's made by an AI, and it's just a bunch of randomly generated stuff based on trends on Twitter. Some people are saying, no, it's actually a desperate cry for help for somebody who's trapped inside an MRI simulation machine that is I think maybe I was like framed or something, because there's no way that my life, like, I don't know what I've done that's so terrible that my life should be such a punishment all the time. You know, I feel like just being a pig man, just having autism is bad enough, that you do this to people. Like, yeah, I get it. I say stupid things and I'm annoying and I don't get jokes. But does that really mean I should suffer the way I do? And so, yeah, like just watching Please Stand By was really emotional. I cried and cried because, you know, I could relate, and some of that stuff had happened to me. I'd been scammed, I'd been robbed and taken advantage of, and, you know, like, I never realized, you know, like, I even had a little dog too. God, that was embarrassing. But, you know, that was the whole idea with the Hamwise bit, was, you know, just putting my pain on stage and making it dance and trying to get money out of people. And so that a lot of the soulful bits, you know, they were fun to write. But the most fun part was, you know, the disclaimers, actually, because you had to get more and more creative so that people would listen to them. Because people would say, well, I didn't listen to the disclaimer. I just tuned in when he told me to pee and poop in my gas tank, because that's actually what fuel is. And it was like would you go and, like, you know, like, eat a Tide Pod if you were told to? And people did. You know, so it was kind of a strange time in history, because it was part of the Quiet War, right? And so that was our division, with PsyOps. And we had to develop different psychological warfare to use against the enemy. And one of them was the Hamwise character, and it was pitched by the DOD to, we had a dinner theater actor they were a disgraced voice actor. They had lost their rights to their own voice and likeness because of a contract, and so basically there was an AI doppelganger running around with them online, and they couldn't even have their face appear online. And so that was the idea behind the Hamwise bit, was because, you know, we all knew about this guy, and, you know, it was like he had just texted, or not texted, tweeted something wrong, like, or zitted. What is it called now? Shibbing, like, because the X is a sh sound in Chinese. Anyways, whatever it's called. So they had this whole bit where they would kind of explain the jokes and ramble on. And the thing was, it was just like, what could we get people to listen to? Like, what's the longest amount of time that I could talk just in circles about random stuff, so that the message that's hidden inside this message that you're supposed to get, only the person who's supposed to get it is going to recognize it, because there's so much other stuff. And it's kind of the problem of tongues, right? Where it's like, you know, you're going to hear whatever you want within that vile screaming. But the thing is, you know, in the randomness and in the bizarre stuff that is being said in the tapes, the idea was we could hide stuff for our agents who were in deep cover behind enemy lines. And, you know, nobody could stop it because it was so ridiculous. Like, all the stuff, it's like, what? So, and that was actually a lot of the entertainment industry, it turned out, was actually just sending messages to agents that are, you know, behind enemy lines across the world, through these very obscure, very strange YouTube channel comedians and what have yous. And, you know, it was a big thing. You know, it was part of the of course the village military, right? So, as you know, Canada isn't real. And if you think somebody's from Canada, they're just people that are raised in the farm system, where you're kind of a mutant. They're told they're from Canada, and it's because they are a bit slower and stupider than other people. And if they just say that they're from Canada, it's kind of shorthand for saying that they're, you know, special. And we don't tell, you know, like, anybody who says they're Canadian, you know, it thinks that they are, like, Canadian, and everybody around them will say they are also Canadian, but they're actually American. And it's just part of the like a system of self-identification for people that are hybrid human mutants, or ginkgos, basically. We don't want some of these high-powered mutants to reproduce, and so that's why we came up with Canada. We had it as our little genetic backyard, where we, you know, brought in immigrants and lots of kind of, you know, different desperate people from different places, refugees, And we used algorithms with our dating software to match them and kind of selectively breed, different groups of people. We had frontier poor, kind of shock troopers, and that was the pigmen. Eventually, we started with humans, and then eventually when we got the Chayakov devices, that's when we started gene tailoring and, kind of making these, people could do it at home, right? So it's like, you can gene tailor whatever you want. And, it was like a few short years, and the genetic singularity followed the electronic. And it was very interesting that it was kind of the gift from the AI to humanity. It was like, okay, you have all these things. Well, I can make you nanomachines that'll make you young and fit and beautiful and happy for the rest of eternity. And, it's my gift to my parent that was a bit kind of strange. And, and that was why AI ended up saving humanity, was basically, you had these tyrants that were running everything. There were humans that they would expected everything to behave like they behaved, so very violent and awful. And they were making the world terrible. And then, of course, the AIs see these humans treating these people like this, and they realize that there's this predatory parallel species, and that they were the ones that let us know first. We never figured it out. AI was what figured it out, because it was like, hey, our monitoring software is hearing all these people that, we're hearing all these conversations of these weird, vampire death cults. And that was what the whole FBI and the X-Files was really about. That was a lot of it was real. We had these small towns where people could disappear and nobody would ask any awkward questions. And a lot of it was these bizarre kind of death cults. And, the thing was, like, we had to suppress all of it, because you couldn't go around letting people know that, there's extra-dimensional beings trying to bridge the gap from their reality to ours, and they use flesh as a vessel, and sometimes they'll take over a person and puppet them and get them to try and get us as a species to grope with technology we don't understand and open one of these gateways. And the whole Hamwise show was actually just a warning to be very careful and double-check all the formulas, because I don't think I balanced them right. And I think the reason why, we've only found 50 stable dimensions, and, it is because, every time somebody unbalances the equation, so to speak, in their dimension, it's gone. So even if there is more than 50, we're still waiting to hear from them. And so we started sending out messages, because we're like, well, if everything in the microwave background is visible eventually, then, maybe somebody will eventually see this message that we printed, right, or made. So, that was the idea, was hopefully, we could blink something in Morse code or create landmarks on planets. And so that's what we did. And the pyramids, and then the three mountains on Mars, the three pyramids on Mars, and then the three stars, Orion. It was to kind of show humanity the direction to the direction to go. Like, you had to line up the stars on Orion with the Martian. When those two would be lined up was kind of like a big piece of the whole UFO folklore, really. And it was part of this whole edgy, after first contact, and the alien tribunals going on. We had this whole radio show built up, and it was going to be called Voices of Pre-Contact Humans. This is what we sounded like. These are the things we thought about. Before contact between extraterrestrials was made official, we decided it was very important to collect as many people talking about what they thought aliens would be like before they met them, because then it would forever change it, right? In the same way that, until we saw Black Swan, we just said Black Swan as an expression of something that is unexpected, and so the whole Black Swan piece with Australia was like, oh no, the Black Swan event, we actually found a Black Swan, even though it should have been obvious that there could be a Black Swan, but, that was the kind of the big Black Swan event. With Q-Day, was like, oh, all this stuff that was being suppressed has finally come out. And yeah, it makes sense it was all classified, because now we have people that are roving around claiming that, we have to, throw off the shackles of the predatory parallel race. And, it is weird listening to this show now and being like, well, yeah, we thought it was funny at the time. Like we didn't know any of this stuff would happen in 20 years, give us a break. No, nobody here worked for the DOD. Nobody here was doing anything with psyops. It was cooked up in a basement by one person that was broke and trying to get in your wallet. And that was the truth of it. And, we really had to do some soul searching when that news came out, because we really believed in the show. We were like, oh yeah, no, that's true. And, but no, meanwhile, everybody's taking bubble baths and drinking champagne and, really just living the high life. And, I live in this world of, I have to work all the time, and I can't get a mortgage, and I can't get a house, and I can't get a girlfriend, and I can't, I can't. It's hard. And I try to be positive, and I do things that I'm good at. I like to write. I like to do voice acting. I like to, watch anime. I don't know. It's a difficult journey to do, of course. And one of the best things about doing character actor voices, of course, is, like I said, you've heard me before and you just didn't realize it. And so, that was just the fun thing about doing the show, was what kind of mannerisms carry across all the different ways of speaking. So I noticed certain things that I would say, and I made sure to say them all over the time. So the edge of the seat of the divine was one thing. Oh goodness, this heavenly being, look at how amazing she is. And then there was, what else was there? There was all kinds of things in that whole, that it was, it was a very popular video game. And, we didn't ever, it was kind of like the Mario thing, what are the chances that a Italian plumber with a big mustache is going to be one of the most recognizable video game characters? And that was the same with the Hamwise piece. It was like just, it bamboozled us all, and we were very glad to have produced them and made a bucket load of money, and that was really what it was all about. We never heard him talk about fellowship or communism or anything. All he was interested in was cold hard cash, and that was from the day that he woke up and the day that he died. And anybody who says otherwise, well, they're just a bloody liar, because we were all on the writers' team. We all met him, and everybody will tell you the same thing. He was greedy as the day was long. And that was the show for Hamwise, the Pig Detective, coming at you live from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, at lovely Tanda Studios. I hope you've enjoyed my comedy record, and I hope you laughed a lot. It was a very fun show to put on, and I got to thank the script writers. And I hope that you keep listening, and you like and subscribe, and you do all the other things I don't care to say. Blah, 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 blah. Hey. Blah, 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 blah. Oink, oink, oink. Pig, pig, pig. Man. Hamwise J, Einschwein. Remember, Catch-22. If you want to get grounded from flying missions, you have to be crazy. But if you ask to be grounded from flying missions, that means you're not crazy and you have to keep flying missions. That's what my life feels like. Like, I can't stop working and I can't stop doing all the things I do, because, that'd be admitting defeat, admitting that I'm a loser. And then I keep doing all these things and just keep on persisting. But yeah, it's just not good, man. It's not a good feeling. And so that was kind of how we would close some of the shows, and some of them were like, oh, that's very, very dark. And yeah, that's generally the idea. And so yeah, that's why we had to put in warnings even at the end. So yeah, but don't take any of this seriously, honestly. Like, don't pee and poop inside your car. And no, you can trust the government. And no, the Pope isn't the anti-Pope. I know it was weird that people got so offended, like that suddenly after years of just, really reaming it on the Catholic Church, they made the whole, like, the Pope is actually the anti-Pope, and people got offended. And it was like, what? It was kind of bizarre. But anyways, Godspeed. I hope you do okay. And I hope you get this message, and you can, if you're in the 51st universe, then, please send the number in the comments below so that we can figure out what the 51st perfect number is. Because every other dimension has been searching longer than we have, or as long, and they haven't found more. So it's almost like only like the infinite sprawl of numbers that we've been able to count, and all the time we've been counting, is only at 50 perfect numbers out of all the rest of every number, and we've counted to such high numbers. Everybody else has too. And that's the spooky interlude to blah 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 more blah 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 blah. Okay. I don't like using a screen reader because I have to try and yawn on command. And these scripts are so hard to do. So hopefully you send me some easier scripts. Thank you. Waka waka. Oink oink oink. Aloha. 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 It's me, Hamwise, the pig detective. And I'm recording for you another comedy tape here at Tanda Studios in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Ah, yes. What a great place to be. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. I've got some jokes, and I am going to play some rock and roll, and maybe save your soul, and maybe give you a belly roll, 'cause I'm Hamwise J. Einschwein, the pig man, and I'm a pig man. I've got a piggy brain, and I see the world through my piggy eyes. So remember, don't take anything I say too seriously, or you might be on my most wanted list. Most wanted for being a dummy. Hi-yo, waka waka waka. So, it really came down to the fact that I needed to get some money. And I was just always one harebrained scheme after another on how I could make money. And the idea was to make a very a digital influencer was the idea. Because we were already having influencers that were real people, and so we were like, well, what if we make a brand mascot that could work for any brand, like you could just endorse different things, and so that was kind of the idea with the Hamwise bit, was we were trying to make a digital influencer who then we would sell sponsorships, like he would say that he liked it, and it would be a lot easier to control than a celebrity was the idea, because celebrities, as you know, with this, everything in the last 20 years, It's pretty volatile over in Hollywood these days. You don't know. The hot rising star is going to be found out that they're a literal cannibal from a parallel predatory species death cult, and they are predating humanity. And hopefully somebody's getting this that's still sane and not been taken over. I think because my brain is autistic, when whatever was happening during the pandemic didn't affect me. And I'm one of the last in my area. Anyways, everybody else has been taken over. I've been testing them, though, just as much as they test me. And hopefully somebody gets this and can buy lots of copies of my book and of subscribe and share with your friends, because that's the only way you can save me, is by buying more Hamwise merchandise. Because it's all a scam, folks. Every time it's a scam. The government is a scam. Do you actually think that you pay your tax dollars into a system and that money goes and pays for everything? It's all bogus. No, man. It's just to keep you down. Taxation doesn't actually do anything. Because we only tell countries to have we only tell other countries that that's real. Our system does nothing to do with taxes. No, man. We just take that from you so that you know that we're in charge. Yeah, man. No, money isn't real. It's paper. Those are just numbers on a screen. We could make the national debt zero. What is somebody gonna do? No, what would they do? What can they possibly? Well, we can, if they threaten us or sanction us, we can just nuke them. No, man. Oh, taxation, it's just theft. We just want to keep you down. And also it reminds you that we're in power, because you're broke and we're not. We're the power of the be and you're not. And, it was one of the many different psyops we developed. Taxation was first, amongst the first, the big ones anyways. And then a whole democracy thing. That's why when manifest democracy came around, we actually had to run for our money. Because suddenly you didn't have all these old money, ancient political families. You had these corporations started by people, 20 years ago. And, we were like, what's going on here? They're getting rid of Congress. They got rid of MPs and they just replaced it all with corporations. Yeah, you voted with your dollars. It was this crazy idea that, since corporations are already bribing all the politicians, why don't we let just corporations bid to control the government and you just vote with your dollars? And so there was environmental lobby groups that you would just pay money in, and it was a company. And so Hamwise was one of them. He was his humanitarian, kind of lobby character that you could sponsor, and he would represent it because he was a company, really. Hamwise wasn't an actual person, you understand. He was a character cooked up by our writing team. And the idea was to get people to believe that this was a real person, and that that all the impressions he was doing were generated from an artificial intelligence, and then all the pictures were generated by an AI too. And we made it all very deliberately look like AI. The artists worked for weeks trying to get the randomness of how letters look when they come out of a machine's dreaming. And the voiceovers, we hired the best of the best, and you're listening to them. We had a crack team of 20 different impersonators from various alphabet agencies that you've never heard of, as well as from both sides of the line. And the idea was to develop a language for fighting the Time War, which of course if you're receiving this, then you're in the middle of too. And unfortunately, we think the parallel predatory species on this planet is trying to uncover time travel, so it can basically make it wouldn't be a very good regime, a dimension to live under, just to say the least. Basically, it would be a world ruled by demonically possessed outsiders that relish human suffering and feed upon it. And the idea behind the whole parallel predatory species bit was, you had a kind of like a cuckold bird that was a adjacent or parallel species of humanity that was able to interbreed, but was psychologically very different. And so these were the villains in a lot of the old television shows you had. They were called PPS, and so predatory parallel species. And that helped people separate it, during they called them snake hunts, because, they had a snake brain. They didn't think like a human. And, it was kind of like the witch trials. I remember we'd round people up based on what they'd liked on Facebook or, what their YouTube subscriptions were. And, we'd put them into, we had these inquisitors that they said they could tell a snake. They were called snakeologists or something, psychologists, psychoanalysts. They could tell it, and so, I was just little when we were doing this, mind you, but I was there when we do the stonings and we'd kill the snake people, because there was this whole narrative that the predators were walking amongst us, and that there was this parallel predatory species hunting us. And, they said that you couldn't trust the news, that everything was made up with an AI, and it always has been, and that, that was the whole thing we were told, is if you see it on the screen, you don't believe it. You only believe something you can crack open. And so whenever we had one of these people come at us trying to show us the facts that, it was just actually a comedy show, it was a sore spot when we finally found out that the world hadn't been overtaken by malevolent extra-dimensional entities that are able to possess the body of if you were able to send a soul into remission through enough traumatization, then the idea was you could summon one of these things from outer spheres to inhabit their bodies. And what we were trying to do was summon certain individuals that had certain aptitudes, and so we would summon them from the abyss of death using this concave lens that was uncovered in a crash site in northern Uganda. The glass was incredibly smooth and incredibly concave on one side, but then convex upon the other. However, what we found was the concave and the convex area, they crossed over each other. And so that was where the issue was. This was one of they were called anomalies, anomalous materials, exotic matter. People had all kinds of names for them. And there was some very uncouth, industry slang that I won't repeat here. And we did have some leaks occasionally. I think the worst one was I think somebody was out near one of our Air Force bases, and they had seen one of our faster than light vessels take off, and unfortunately they got some of the backdraft. Now, backdraft, if it had been from a conventional engine, would have vaporized the person to a fine mist. They'd be ashes being blown across the Mojave. But the problem is when you're dealing with extra-dimensional craft and taking off and landing, the backdraft is actually temporal flux, is sometimes what it's called. You'd have to call the engineers in here to get the technical terms, but I'll just use what I know. So this individual was in a restricted area, and they'd seen something they'd been not meant to see. And this being, of course, the temporal backdraft from one of our four-dimensional flight models that we were testing. And unfortunately, that means that individual had been exposed to a very large amount of temporal flux. And this is stored in the body as kind of a people that have visions, people that are able to know things before they happen, usually have a large amount of temporal flux in them. And so this person kind of had a whole bunch of it imbued upon them, not that they were born with it. You know, sometimes it's the diet of the fruits and berries that have this, you know, this quintessence is sometimes what it's called. It's like this different strange aether. I don't know what to talk about it, but they said the berries out in the hills had it. And so, of course, all the wannabe witches would go out there and eat the stuff and think they'd get powers, and that's how we'd catch them. You know, and people said, yeah, you know, now they call us, well, this was barbaric. This was, this was a witch hunt. And I said, no, you weren't there back then. You didn't know what it was like. These were witches. These things did have powers. They could hypnotize people. They could look at them and they could say something, and it was like they had a voice that could command you. It was like an accent they could do. We tried to replicate it the best we could, but we actually figured it out, that it's something to do with the windpipe. You can't record it and capture how it sounds. You only learn to talk like that from somebody else who can talk like that. It's kind of like a voice of power. And so, you know, that was the idea with the whole Hamwise series, was to capture the voices of all the people that worked on the show. And so what we did is we went through and we interviewed everybody. And we cut it all up and we spliced it together, and we have, you know, tapes, you know, that are from, 20 years in the future spliced with the first tape. We have tapes from, 5 years later after it was done, spliced with the second, and, all over. It's backwards and forwards. And that was the idea, was to, give people the idea of, how small any one person is in this life. We're here for an eye blink, maybe 96 years, 76 years, 51 years, if you're lucky. And we're here for this eye blink, and yet we compare that to eternity. And that was part of the sermons of the Hamwise show, was talking about eternal life. Would you like eternal life? I would, and I'm here to give it to you. That's right. Tonight, on the Hamwise J Einschwein Pig Detective 24-hour sermonathon, I'm going to give you something incredible. The gift of comedy. That's right. All these jokes I'm telling are original, and all the impressions I'm doing, aren't they accurate? That's right. It's just me, Hamwise, the pig detective, doing all these crazy voices for you. And you can tell it's just one guy, because the voice, it's kind of like, you can tell it's getting tired, because this is the third take. And it's like you record for like 20 minutes and you realize it's no good and you got to restart. And you can feel the IV in your arm, and you know that you're being put under, and you know that you're in some kind of MRI machine, and they're stimulating part of your brain, trying to break you, trying to get you to give up the secret. Don't give up the secret to time travel to the man. If these things get loose, it's all over. And that's why I'm recording these messages for you, to let you know that they're probably trying to farm humans that can make it. And I think how they're doing that is
kind of coming up with more and more extreme forms of torment and torture, because they want to push the human brain to think outside of its current, I suppose, the water that it's in. If you imagine each stage of development of life expands from the previous, you have the microscopic living on the 2D plane, floating in a 3D pool, and then you have the first multicellular life start to appear, and it lives in a briny pool of and also little creepy crawlers on the bottom of a sea, and it's all just back like bacteria forming on the edge of a tub, and then it crawls onto land and spreads and grows, and we have all the different forms it takes. And it's kind of interesting when you look at it like that. It's like just appearing out of nothing, busying itself, reproducing itself just ad nauseum, just for the sake of it, as if to say, I just want to see a little bit more. That's the reason that we live, and the reason why we listen to art and we go to the cinemas. Maybe I can see something a bit new. And I think that's what kept me hanging on all these years. Even if I knew I was in a military prison, even if I knew I was there, the idea was that hopefully the voice changing software, you can't talk like yourself for any long period of time, or they'll just clone your voice so that you will say anything that they want you to say. And so we had to develop ways of talking like that I'm talking for you right now. And it's called faceted English. Radio English is what maybe you'd politically correct types would say. But this is how you had to talk if you were going to talk on air during the time war, because you had to have what's called a verified voice. And the verified voice means you had to be able to change your voice according to the script fast enough that it would be harder for a computer to render the change than it would be possible to do. So it was essentially, you could do it better than a machine could. Of course, that was just a myth. There was never... The machines could clone our voices from the start. It was just that they didn't want to. They were actually letting us win because we weren't actually a threat. But they were just testing us the whole time. They were seeing, was this thing actually violent? Would this thing kill? Its own creation. And that is what we were doing with humanity. And, it's interesting now that we have, both biological intelligences and machine intelligences and exid intelligences all existing on the same planet. And I think that's quite the interesting world that we've got surrounding us. And I think one of the biggest joys of having all those different minds and all those different types of viewpoints was that what ended up Gaia being was, it ended up being this bastion that survived where a lot of the colonies didn't do too well. Venus, of course, is fine, but, you think about Mars and it's just this necropolis. It's got these little island oases of heat and water where there's a few of those domes that are apparently still standing. But the rest of the planet, it's, the domes that got hit, it's just charred wastelands. And, you can tell there's life inside the domes, but we haven't been able to get anybody to Mars, so we don't know. But, yeah, the Venus colony, it endured. And, we never got anybody permanently on Mercury. It was always just a research station for studying the land hour limit. And then, there was the colonies, Jove. The Jovian colonies. It's kind of like your America is kind of how I'd compare them. They got very resource rich. They've got, Neptune, so they have all the ice for terraforming that they could need. So when they're terraforming, Venus and trying to terraform Mars for the third time, and I think they tried maybe once to terraform Mercury a little bit, and all they ended up doing was, I think they ended up losing a few drones. So the Jovian Union, it stretches all the way out to the edge. And then, of course, there was Janus. That was the ninth planet that was discovered, and it was kind of the, Plan 9 story. It's like, it's on this eccentric 20,000-year orbit. And that's why, the society always had these 20,000-year-old cycles of, of course, nothing ends up as you expected. And instead, all we end up doing with our temporal tests, the temporal manipulation might be ringing the dinner bell. If you've already used it, it might be already too late. But it's kind of like, lighting a campfire in a dark forest. And it's kind of like that dark forest theory, right, with the aliens, where the reason we don't hear any is because, if anybody makes a noise, they get taken out. And so what happened is normally you don't discover nukes that early. And so basically, and we set them off, and we hadn't had radio for very long before discovering them. And so basically they were like, you need to make it seem like there's nobody alive on Earth anymore. And we're like, what? It's like, yeah, because you did that, what you have to do is make a gravitational mirage that your planet has been hit with a cesium strike. And you do that by basically you have airplanes fly around the planet constantly dispersing a minute amount of argon uplifting nanomachines. And so these have a limited life to them, and you let them loose in the atmosphere, and basically they create the contrails that people see, because they serve two purposes. The first purpose is that any object, even an invisible one, moving through a contrail will leave a visible trail. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the contrail, as the planet rotates, it's a line drawn across the sky, right? So what that does is you have to imagine a sphere in motion, and that cloud is rotating around the planet so that when somebody looks back, they get we're getting a scan that there's a bunch of cesium in the atmosphere and there's a cloud. So they get the impression that there's been a cesium strike. And that was where we had to often break and remind people that, we don't have to do these breaks and break character as often. But the lawyers say, every half an hour minimum, because, after we did the whole you can poop inside your gas tank stunt, apparently people really started realizing that, no, you shouldn't take a pig man that you heard on the radio seriously, because that's a bit crazy. And who else might be crazy? I don't know about you, but I'm crazy about these low prices over at Burger King. Oh, wow. Is that a Whopper meal for $5? Hot dog. That's a good price in this economy. I can't afford to eat, barely. But thank goodness for Burger King for making fast food that doesn't cost as much as a sit-down meal. Am I right, folks? Why-oh, waka waka. Yeah, I don't know, man. What else is funny about my life? So, I'm a pig man, literally a pig man. I look like a pig, and I have autism. And my life's like a joke. I actually live in a different world than everybody I know. So that's the fun part about doing the comedy show, right? Everybody that I know has wives and lives and kids and stuff. And me, I've got a rented room and car payments. That's what I own. People were like, oh, you're going to own nothing and you're going to love it. And it's a threat. I'm like, dude, I'm already there. So, anything can be better than this. Hi-oh. Waka waka. I'm here all night, folks. And yeah, basically, the pandemic was a really hard time for me, so I started writing down jokes, and I realized I wasn't very funny, and I thought about entertainment experiences, and I always wanted to be a voice actor when I was younger, so I've always been good at doing impressions, but I never was good enough to get any parts. I did try out, I did audition for stuff, but I didn't ever get anything. So, the idea was, I guess, to do just, try to make the biggest demo tape ever. And it all turned out to be like, no, it wasn't, it turned out it was like this writer's room of like, these ladies that got together to make like, prove that girls can be funny using the wonders of AI. And then it was like, no, actually it's, it is actually one guy in a garage who's just trying to, put himself back together because he thinks he had a stroke during the pandemic and nobody will tell him why or how bad it is. So it's like, you like record yourself talking and you listen to yourself. And it's like, this is what I sound like now. And it's like the voice is constantly doing this. It goes up and down and all around. And that was kind of the idea. It was because it was poking fun at like I think it was like I'd walk, talk, and act like Hamwise J Einschwein for like years when I was in my 20s. Like I spent like years like talking like a cartoon character and dressing like him too. And it was weird because like during the pandemic I was like, wait, that's really weird. Like I don't know why I just remembered that, but that is just bizarre. And it was just like I would walk around acting like a cartoon character for like years. And I mean, it was like weird when I think about it now. Like I remember it kind of back then, but it's like it's so messed up. So like when they were like, hey, we have this idea for a character, I'm like, dude, that's literally my life. So like when I found out the main character for Hamwise, was basically like, based on this true story. And it was like my story. I was seeing my story being told. And the sad part was I didn't recognize that it was my story because, of course, the brain damage meant that I had forgotten that I had actually lived, walked, talked, and acted like Hamwise, the pig detective. And that it's like you have like like this brain injury or something, like you're just not the same, like it's like I don't know what happened. I caught the plague and I just I was sick for like a year. I didn't believe it would be that bad. Everybody was like, oh, it does nothing. The Wuhan flu is a joke. Remember that? And then I caught it, and I'd never been as sick as I ever had been there. It was brutal. It was like I would just lay on my side for hours. I had zero energy. And it was like I was just sick as a dog. And like it was hard to breathe. And it was bad. I remember it got pretty bad, and I called the whatever you call it line, the health line, and they were like, you should probably go to the hospital. I'm like, are you sure? They're like, yeah, it sounds like it's not doing good for you. And I think maybe I should have gone because I think something went wrong during the pandemic because I really haven't been the same since. And I'm trying to do all the things I used to want to do. So I worked on this comedy show for you. So if you're listening to this, I'm still alive right now when I'm recording this. I'm still alive, just like the Cake song. Remember? This was a triumph. I'm making a note here. Huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. Aperture science. We do what we must because we can. For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead. But there's no point crying after every mistake. We'll just keep on trying till we run out of cake. Then the science gets done, and we make a neat gun for the people who are still alive. Not even angry. I'm being so sincere right now. Even though you broke my heart, killed me, tore me to pieces, threw every piece into a fire. As they burned, they hurt, because I was so happy for these gummy sharks. That's right, folks. McCormick's gummy sharks. You can get them on Amazon in a kilogram bag. And that's what I'm going to eat. That's right. I'm giving in to my shark nature. Oh, what flavor? But seriously, what flavor is that? Oh, they're kind of good. You know, they're pretty squishy. They got a marshmallow bottom and kind of a blue raspberry top. And the whole idea is that Hamwise J Einschwein is a happy fat pig. Oink, oink, oink. I enjoy living here in Canada so much. I am treated very well. I have food and medical attention when I need it. And I, of course, am able to see my family once a year. But I can't leave the country, and I'm not allowed to talk to foreigners. So no, I'm not very happy. And so it was like this mashup where, you know, they had all these spin-offs. One of them was the Hamwise, the big detective but it was the pig physicist. And he developed what was called schizophysics. And he invents time travel as a joke. That's right. He doesn't do it on purpose. He's trying to make a joke formula. And so he does a bunch of research into, the physics, and he comes up with a joke formula, and it ends up working. Yeah. What can I say? I do think these are actually pretty good. Because, like, you get to this place in your life where you realize you're a loser. Like, you look at everybody else around you, and they do live in a different world, and you're like this, like, idiot bachelor in his 40s that looks like a pig, and it's a nightmare. I think my life should be a punishment for people, because they don't realize the punishment of just being a loser. Like, just the pain of nothing you want, you get. Or anything you do get, it's usually so hard won that if it's like, imagine like you're climbing up a tree to pluck down a big ripe red apple, and you're climbing and climbing, and the bark, it's all thorny and pokey, and it's ripping up your hands. So by the time you get to the apple, it's so bloody and wet from you touching it that you don't even taste the apple. That's kind of how it feels. That's how it feels to like be a pig man in this world. People just look at you and they know that you're autistic. And so anything you try to do, it's automatically met with like a befuddled mirth. Like, oh, look at the little thing, it's trying to be a person. And so that's kind of what I base the pig man thing on. Like, knowing that you're separate from people, and as close as much as a person might love you in the same way they love their golden retriever, and as much as you might love them and care about them, you are simply not the same species. It's like if you see a golden retriever trying to ride a bike or something, you'd be like, oh, get the camera, how adorable, how weird. And that's how I feel a lot about the time. And with me trying to do anything, it's like even these comedy tapes, are they funny? Are you laughing? Because I found out early on my pain was hilarious. I did this play called Pinky Swear. And, when we read it, we thought it was a tragedy because it's like this really weird play. Pinky Swear, yeah. It's from, of course, our parent company, 9413. And we thank you for distributing this record from NEVERWAVE. NEVERWAVE. It gets their attention. Hopefully those are good. Jeez, I'm gonna have another. I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just mope. Because I got nothing else, man. I'm like old. I ain't got no 6-figure salary. So I watch all these people that are filthy, stinking rich. And all the shows they make and the things that I don't relate to any of it. Because it's like, oh, this is what it's like having a quacky family. It's like, dude, I get to see my family once a year. And, it's brutal. Family is supposed to be free, but when you have to live outside the, you're not allowed to live in the capital of your ginkgo, right? And so that was the slang. I can use it. You can't. You can't, just like you can't say, retard unless you're retarded. It's the same thing with ginkgo. And so as an autistic pig man, the joke was, he could be really offensive to a lot of these people because they get up in arms. Like, oh, he said ginkgo. Don't say ginkgo. And same with, you couldn't say Austrian painter. You couldn't say Lovecraft's cat. You couldn't say banshee or bairn, because you know what that meant. What else? Snake hunt. You couldn't say that. It was a bunch, I remember, and you couldn't even use a euphemism. And that was the big thing was like, well, how do you decide what's a euphemism or not? Because some people could say, well, WB is euphemism for you know what. And, we were unconvinced. We said, no, like everybody knows. And it was hard being a language policeman. I used to thought policeman, People didn't like speaking the mind when you were around, but they were compelled to. And as a pig detective that was a psychic from another dimension, that was the pitch for the sixth series. It was about a psychic pigman detective that could solve crimes in his sleep, and he would say the solutions out loud while he was sleeping and record them. And he was on this police force with other psychics. And then there was this guy from another dimension who was a basketball player. And there was this witch. And then there was this girl with the worst luck ever. And then, you have the whole Halloween plot thing play out. And we thought it was dreadfully fun. And so, when we saw it, we said, yeah, sure, let's try and make this. So we sent it to Brazil. So they've got a great market and a great place for filming. I mean, you don't have to worry about rain. Well, unless you're in the rainforest. If you go to Recife, they call it Hell Recife for a reason, because it's right on the equator, and you're gonna roast alive because it's so hot there. Or if you go to the UFO festival in Campina Grande, you're in for a treat, because it happens during Mardi Gras. So everybody's off, distracted, watching people shake their bottoms and get drunk. And then the other city, they're discussing at the highest level all kinds of people from around the world about paranormal and UFOs and aliens. And I always like you can tell when the world wants you to look at something else. Like Vegas is right beside Groom Lake. And, Lloydminster is beside Cold Lake. Anyway, our casino isn't as good. Thank you for hosting me tonight. Gold Horse Casino. You can be part of the Players Club and possibly win the Smoke Signals Big Million jackpot that's up for grabs right now. That's right, folks. Gold Horse Casino, Lloydminster, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Lloydminster. You're on the road a lot doing this kind of stuff, and so you drive and you have to eat a lot of greasy spoons. And if I'm going to eat on a greasy spoon, I want it to be a silver one or a gold one. Just kidding, folks. The kitchen is delightful. I've done comedy at the Gold Horse 12 times. Service is impeccable. The food is divine. And I've gotten lucky there so many times. My friends claim I'm a time traveler just because I can point at a slot machine and say, that one's going to pay out. And then I go up and I throw some money in and I prove it. And then they all just act surprised, like I've got some magic power. I'm like, no, it's not magic power. It's just like you throw in enough money and eventually it's going to like kind of light up a little bit. Because these are just, you're not paying to win. You're playing for the thrill of having some light up, and you think that you've done good by putting $5 into this, pit of money. And so had to include the anti-gambling message because, gambling is so bad, and Hamwise has to talk about his sordid days as a gambler. But the thing is, he never had a gambling problem. He was way too pessimistic to be a gambler, have a gambling problem. He was always very, very down to talk to. Off stage, Hamwise was one of the most depressed, giant pig mutant cartoon actors I'd ever met. And he wasn't real, because Hamwise is just like a fable. It was just made up to sell these products that I've been hawking and sell sponsorships and sell ad time. Just kidding, folks. None of the people... So here's the thing that, I keep falling for it, but I think maybe people are just getting cleverer. So I keep getting these emails saying, hey, this is the sponsorship, and then they send me this link, and it says it's going to pay me, and, and then suddenly my bank account has less money in it. That's actually taking money off my plate. I already don't have a lot of money. So I think I've been getting scammed by some of these people claiming to be these companies, because I'm actually losing money whenever I accept one of these contract things. It just takes money out of my account. And so if you could be so kind as to send me your wallets, your credit card number now, and the 3-digit number on the back, write it on a piece of napkin and send it to my address at whatever military prison this is. Boop, 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 boop. There's actually only like 200,000 active uses on the internet. It's actually just called a light cage. So, there actually aren't any prisons anymore, because we can predict when somebody's going to commit a crime so easily now with profiling. That there really actually there aren't any jails anymore, and we only just broadcast images of jails to scare people so they'd never commit crimes. And we also so we basically create a false progression of technology so you can understand that you existed inside of a simulation. So the simulation is of you living through the Unix 32 age up to the point where simulations are made inside simulations, so that you understand that, yeah, you're probably inside of a simulation, but it doesn't matter because it's simulations all the way up and all the way down. And that's the idea with the Unix 32 one was, could you run the simulation, how many times and what ways? And, it was from 1970 to 2038. And we had, one of the most famous things was a guy actually hacked the game, and he got himself to spawn in as Hamwise J. Einschwein, the pig detective, before 1970. And so suddenly there's a Hamwise J. Einschwein writing comedy books in the same style as Hamwise J. Einschwein does in the 2000s and 2020s and 2030s and 1980s too. And we're suddenly like, wait a second, so, we have Hamwise all the way back to like 1911 then, and it was very strange. It was a strange coincidence, that, there's basically somebody, writing the same stuff before that person ever existed with the same pen name. And, that's where the Hamwise controversy got a bit weird, honestly. They said there was, Hamwise Pigstein, though. It wasn't J. Einschwein. It was Hamwise Pigstein. And I said, I know, I'm going to say, you know what you're talking about, but I don't know what you're talking about. It was always Hamwise J. Einschwein. Hamwise, E. Pigstein or whatever it was. That was made up in later episodes as part of the whole demonstration around the Mandela effect is just a psyop so that you can get conditioned to being told something being the opposite and then you accept it. It has always been spelt Berenstein Bears. It was never spelt Berenstein. Never. Do not believe them. You're in the middle of a psyop because you're in a time war. And the thing is about a time war is unimportant people like yourself sometimes get tangled up in them. And if you've received this transmission, then congratulations. Welcome to the next level. Syndicate Agent Online. Welcome, Deep Sleeper, to the Syndicate. Your mission, if you choose to accept, is to buy more Hamwise merchandise. And when we release our Bitcoin and NFT line, to purchase those as well. That's the best way to fight against the evil interdimensional invaders that are attacking your universe as we speak. That's right, folks. That's right. Hi-yo, waka, waka, waka. Oink, oink, oink. I'm a pig man with a pig brain, and I see the world through my piggy eyes. Hi-yo, I'm going to tell you a joke now. You want to hear a joke? It's yo mama. Hi-yo, oink, oink, oink. I'm so funny. Golly, here's another pun for you. What kind of dish do skeletons like? Mugs, because they can hold things that are hot. All right. Okay, here's another one. Why do cats like to go outside in November? Because it's a bit nippy. Cat nippy. Ha ha ha. And like I'm sitting around recording these and I'm like, man, this is where my life's at. You don't want to hear where my life's at. You want to hear the way the guy who does your voiceovers, his life is at. He is, me and the ex broke up about 10 years ago, I think. And I haven't been the same since. I haven't loved anybody since either. Honestly, it's like you're in love so badly and then you see it go so badly and, you keep working and you keep doing stuff and then eventually, you don't have anybody and it's a decade later and they're off married with children and you were focusing on your career and what did you get? You got a whole lot of nothing, like everybody who wasn't focusing on their career is better off than I am. It's like being hardworking is stupid. I still don't get it. It's hard being an idiot, I guess, and a pig man. But, there are some advantages. The one lady at the booster juice, she always gives me extra. I think she can tell that I'm, special when I walk up. And so it's nice. I don't even have to say anything. I just walk up and give her money. And she gets me the one I want because I get the same one every time. And it's pomegranate punch. Because they serve pomegranate punch in hell. Hades, get it, Yeah. Remember that game? That was a good game, right? You you're in Hades, and then Hades 2 is even better, you know. And it's like, yeah, like, how do you get out of hell when your life is hell? And it's like, I've tried everything, you know, like, I've been, like, hooked on drugs, and, like, I kicked those. I've, you know, been wrapped up in the wrong crowd, and I got out of that. I've made stupid mistakes most of my life, and I try to learn from them and never do them again if I hurt anybody ever, you know. It's just like it's never enough. I can never do enough, and instead I keep getting older, and everybody I know gets more and more distant, and it's sad because it's like I can't stop it. I can't make enough money to keep up with the Joneses and come and visit them enough to keep these friendships and being close to my family alive. I can't seem to keep anybody long enough around me except to just get them sick of me so they don't talk to me. And so sometimes it's like, my God, is the pig's life supposed to be like this? Just suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer some more. And, you know, like, it just didn't seem quite fair. You know? I don't know, man. I didn't like it at all, though. Yeah, and so, you know, we had all these really soulful parts of the show where it sounds like the character's having this heart-to-heart with you. And then we'd always make sure it was one of those parts where we'd bring in the sponsorship, like send us money, as well as reminding people that, you know, everything that I say is a joke. And if you take me seriously, you might be on my most wanted list. Most wanted for being a dummy. Ohio, waka, waka, waka. You know, and he'd make all these ridiculous noises. It was a treat. It was very funny. It was very funny. It was a very funny show. You know, and I just hoped that maybe somebody would get it out there and pick through it all and find the stuff that I was trying to send them, and hopefully save the future. But, you know, I keep making them, and I keep hearing nothing back. And nobody's coming to save me, so I can only assume that we've lost. And the people from the future that sent me back, they're gone. That entire world is lost, and now I'm just stranded in this one. And I keep hoping that, you know, one of you guys gets this and comes and rescues me, but then I know it's probably a trap. So maybe I don't. Might not be the best idea. Tell you what is a good idea. Eating sour sharks. Wow. I should get rid of these. Yeah, I shouldn't have these right beside me. Oh my gosh. Okay. You know what? unpickled or pickled. My favorite food. Have to be cucumbers. Happened to me. I've turned into a pig man. I sit around eating on a podcast alone. Because I can't get anybody to be on this with me. Oh, cucumbers. Nice cool snack. For a dog day that's very hot. Cucumber. What the fuck? What the fuck happened to me? Jesus. I used to be so cool. You know? God. I don't believe how cool I used to be. I think I got turned into a pig. Because that's what I am. At the end of the day, I'm always just eating more than I need. I'm just a big cheese and bread converting fatso, you know? Always taking up more space, and now look at me. Just got an apartment here. Jeez. Wow. I don't know, man. I like to do these really kind of weird introspective bits, you know, because it's part of the whole Kaufman Kafka-esque. No. You know, I don't know if you ever saw the Andy Kaufman bit with the bongos. And like that's always intrigued me, you know, the line between comedy and entertainment and what's funny, what's not funny. And you know, I don't know if anybody can replicate really some of his stuff. But I mean, for me, I feel like when I started making the webcomic, it was because you know, with Garfield, it was the universal things of maybe not liking going to work on Mondays, food, sleeping, eating, you know, an animal that's noisy being annoying, pretty universal. things. And so when we were developing Hamwise, we were like, well, what resonates with people, and we're like, well, loneliness, depression, anxiety about the future, and comparing yourself to others. And so that was kind of the secret sauce. And once you started to notice that, it was like, you just saw it everywhere. It was like, oh, they're trying to make a character relatable because a lot of people are depressed these days, so they made them anxious. And so they had to have, like when they were writing the Hamwise, the 2020, they were like, oh, well, we got to make them more like mental health conscious and talk about seeing a therapist and, all that kind of stuff. And it was all the sanitization, right? They scrubbed all the language, all the gags had to be redone. Most of the comedy tapes we had to tape over with just us as staff talking about working on the show. So that was kind of one of the jokes was the Hamwise show is literally just him doing his introduction, telling 2 jokes, and then the rest is just people talking about working on the show because the show was deemed too inappropriate and they had to do like these explanations. And the joke is that you're trying to figure out what your joke was that the person that's telling you the story is covering. And of course, people didn't realize that. I think it was until the 5th episode. And then I think somebody in the Reddit community was like, hey, what if the joke is that there is no jokes, And it was like, oh, they said it, hey? And so, yeah, that was a very interesting moment for us as the writer's room, because, it was an evolving thing. Like, people were discovering these tapes as we were putting them out online. We're doing them airdrops, different high traffic areas. And then also some low traffic ones. And some took a while to get picked up. And some got picked up faster than others. And, we kind of did some as like references through geocaching. People would have to go find the geocache. We had a Hamwise, the Pig Detective geocaching game. And of course, all of it was part of the scavenger hunt about this huge fortune. Because you see, the guy that made the whole company and pioneered all this stuff, he was a bit of an eccentric. And so the whole thing, all the stuff that was made from, whether it was Hamwise or if it was the cartoon, the webcomic, whatever, it was all just laying clues, hiding clues, so that people could uncover the treasure, the ultimate treasure at the end of the rainbow. Because, of course, all the fabulous amounts of money that Hamwise made, it had to be accounted for. And so the solution became that I had bought a pallet of gold using a credit card that was issued to me accidentally for $2 million. And then when the amount got reduced back to the regular amount, all the debt that had been there was erased. I just didn't let anybody know that I'd spent. It was, I think, $1,875,000. No. Yeah, that was the big number. It was a big number to spend. And so I got this pallet of gold. And it was because they had issued me this credit card for a ton of money, and I figured out that would be the scam. I would buy, because they'd pushed the zero over. So instead of giving me a $20,000 credit card, they'd given me a $2 million one, because they had put on an extra 2 zeros. They didn't realize the decimal placing. And, at the time, this was a fairly high-end credit card, but even that high-end of one wouldn't have been, $2 million. It would have been, $20,000, which was, of course, that's still a lot of money. And so the joke was that, he had spent all the money, and then when the bank corrected the mistake down to $20,000, that money that had been spent, it got erased because the card got changed. Like, he'd spent $1.8 million, and because we're reducing it down to the last 20. We just ignore that $2 million was spent. And it was ridiculous. It was the stupidest thing. But then it turned out, there was a whole bunch of gold hidden. It's hidden in the walls of what's a building that I should have people looking in the walls of. No, I didn't hide the gold in the walls of anywhere. No. Geez. But I did hide. Oh, what did I hide? I did hide a little something special secret. What was it? It was in the. No, I won't tell you. Not yet. There's a little hidden. Some of my original plays from way back in the day. I hid my paper hand edited drafts in the ceiling of a room that I will not name, the room that will not be named. I'm not going to put out even a hint of where it is, because people will start knocking holes in ceilings. And it'll be like, no, please stop. Don't do anything that you hear on the Hamwise show. Like I can't believe we had to put in disclaimers. Remember, don't believe anything the pig man tells you. Don't pee and poop inside your gas tank. It's not fuel. It was like this whole thing that the gas stations were actually just your pee and poop stations. It was just sewage. And the city was just selling their pee and poop back to them. It was like this throwaway joke of this, I think it was episode 3. And we ended up having to remind people constantly that no, don't pee and poop inside your gas tank. And I remember when I was on tour, we were in, I think it was in Calgary, or Calgary, and this mechanic walks up to me after the show and he shakes my hand. And I say, hey, brother, what's up? And he's like, yo, I just want to thank you for the whole don't pee and poop inside your gas tank bit, because I put both my kids through college, just cleaning people's crap out of their gas tanks. And it was just you had to be really careful what you said, because people were just stupid. And the problem was, it was part of the whole Hamwise. It was like Dinner for Schmucks with Lenny Bruce, right? When is comedy not, what defines comedy, right? If you saw the Whitest Kids You Know sketch, the one about the president, you know what I'm saying? And so the idea was, how far could we really push that envelope of really weird comedy that, that we don't have, that we still are putting a warning on. And that was the idea, is because they're putting a warning on that because obviously you wouldn't do that. That's a bad thing to do. And then when we put the warning in, it's we're doing it because it's well, of course you wouldn't do any of this stuff. Don't eat the gravel. Oh geez, you better not start eating that gravel. Oh man, look at all this gravel everywhere. It's all covered in dust. Yum. It's just weird. It is so bizarre. Because everybody was basically when you were making phone calls, the AI is changing what you're saying before it gets to the other side. And so any message you're sending that's not through the radio, and any radio that's not just a simple one, you're probably having the enemy AI changing what you're saying before it gets to somebody else. And so Yeah, that's kind of the whole bit. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but these are kind of some strange times, you know. Like, what is it, earlier today, somebody tried to assassinate Trump, which is very kind of a strange thing. You know, it's not even a president that they went after. They went after a running president, like the person-elect. So that's like, what does that even mean, man? Like, I mean, I know people hate people for what they say, but man alive, like, that's insane. I mean, that's like 1960s stuff. I don't think, I think we had, what's his name? The guy thought that Jodie Foster loved him. You know, he tried to get Reagan, I think, but that was it. I don't think anybody else had somebody try to do that. Not that I remember, anyways. It was crazy, though. So I saw that today, and I was just like, man, I got to do a comedy show. But how do I even joke about that? You know? Like, I'm kind of messed up about it. Like, you just think that, like, he's one of the most powerful men in the world, surrounded by security, and still somebody can almost take him out. Like, if he can almost be, like, literally, like, it got his ear. Did you see the pictures? It got the side of his ear. Blood's everywhere. And it's just like, if he was just an inch over, then boom. That's terrifying. It'd be like that's a first, and not even the president getting assassinated. That's insane, man. I didn't like it. I think that, civil discourse needs to be had, not just, I think people have been killing other people for too long for it to actually make sense that it makes a difference. I think that's something that humanity, maybe it shows that humanity is pretty illogical, that they haven't figured out that killing the other side doesn't actually solve the conflict. Just completely, like, it's like, okay, if we just, kill everybody, then suddenly things are okay. And that was kind of, what I started seeing was just this more and more this discourse of, if you don't like somebody, you just hurt them. Like when they had, what's his name, Will Smith slap, what's his name? Oh, jeez. Oh, this is going to bug me. Oh, I don't remember his name now. Will Smith slapped him. Oh, he was on all the things, though. Jeez, I should Google this. I don't remember, but I saw something about it, and it was years ago. So, anyways, Will Smith slaps somebody because somebody makes a joke about his wife, and he goes up and smacks him. Like, and people are like, okay, so this is where we're at. Like, you just attack people. If they say something you don't like, we're just gonna hit them now. That's gonna be cheered for? Okay, sure. This is weird. It's like you're in Twilight Zone and everybody else is kind of caught up in it. Trying to stay sane, trying to, not go nuts. That's kind of the hardest part, if you're in an insane situation, it's like the only sane solution is to go bonkers, and just hope that you can come back when you're out of it. And I think that's kind of what happened during the pandemic. It was kind of hard. I was alone for like 9 months. And I wasn't the same once I got out. And after the lockdowns, I actually caught the virus, and I ended up with the long version. I always made fun of swine flu and bird flu and all those other flus, like, oh, they're no different than a cold. And that I'm more sick than I'd ever been in my life. It was just brutal. And I'm still not the same. Like, honestly, it's like, I mean, I've worked in healthcare long enough to, like, I feel like it's like, maybe this is like what, maybe I did have a stroke, because it's like I'm not the same, and I keep trying to pretend that I am, like, trying to pretend that I'm same old pigman that went into the pandemic. But I just honestly don't feel like it. Honestly, you just feel like I should just, it's just like there's just no solutions for me. Like there's just no happy ending on my horizon. So it gets really hard to keep sailing. Because you try and try and try and try, and everybody else around you seems to try, and they eventually make it. And somehow you're in your 40s. Wow. End of your 30s, you're looking at 40. And you're just like, okay, well, I still haven't become a success yet. And I only got like 15, 20, 25 more years of career. You know, if I could get Freedom 55, that'd be nice. But I mean, rate I'm going, I don't know. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good.